Okay, so we are recording, and I welcome everybody who is currently in the conference now. And this is the second Mac for the Blind on free online course. This is going to be all about VoiceOver basics. Some of you guys, I think, probably have, from some of the names that I've recognized for people who have registered, I'm assuming have had Macs or have had some experience using your Mac, while there are a number of people who have either purchased or gotten Macs but haven't touched them, or have sort of been considering getting themselves a Mac and have just sort of been exploring the idea of using VoiceOver on the Mac. So hopefully this will be geared to kind of hit everybody's sweet spot as far as what I'll be covering. So, like I said, this is all going to be about VoiceOver basics. So basically, everybody should kind of be familiar with the fact that VoiceOver is the built-in screen reader that comes as part of Mac OS as well as iOS. Apple has been supporting VoiceOver, as a screen reader, quote unquote, since 2005. For those of you veterans out there, that would be when it was called Mac OS 10 Tiger. We're now 15 years down the road. We are at Mac OS 10.15 Catalina. So my material I will be talking about is going to be done on a Mac Mini, a 2019 Mac Mini running the latest version of Catalina 10.15.5. However, unless I mention otherwise, this material will also, if you're running an older OS, whether you're running, High Sierra, Sierra, Mojave, Catalina, with the exception of a couple of things, this should pretty much be the same material for those operating systems. So let's start with the very basics here. If you are using a Mac for the first time and you want to fire up VoiceOver, the shortcut is going to be Command F5. So the Command key, as if you attended my first lesson or just have the knowledge, it's the left or the right of the space bar on a laptop or a full-size keyboard. It's basically the equivalent of the Alt key in the Windows world. So
VoiceOver off.
It toggles VoiceOver off. But if you do it again, now if you have a brand new Mac and you've never really touched VoiceOver, you're going to get an announcement like this.
Welcome to VoiceOver. VoiceOver speaks descriptions of items on the screen and can be used to control the computer using only your keyboard. If you already know how to use VoiceOver, press the V key now. If you want to learn how to use VoiceOver, press the space bar now.
All right, I'm just going to hit the
VoiceOver on Finder.
I'm going to hit the V key because I know how to use VoiceOver, but this will allow you, if you hit the space bar, to go into what is called the VoiceOver Quick Start tutorial. And that will kind of give you a basic introduction to some VoiceOver concepts and terminology, as well as some macOS terminology that could be very helpful. Is it going to really teach you, quote unquote? Perhaps not. Perhaps it might be enough material to get the self-learner, going in the right direction. It certainly helped me back in the day. And I like to kind of play with the Quick Start tutorial every now and then just to see what's changed and, what I remember and what I've forgotten from, it's about 20 or so screens, and you go through it, do the exercises that it explains to you. You can quit it at any time hitting the escape key. And when you start it up again, you'll be asked whether you want to pick up where you left off or whether you want to go back to the beginning. Now you can use the left or the right arrow keys to skip backwards or skip forward if there's something that you want to go do again, or maybe you're at a section that you were already pretty familiar with and you don't want to waste your time. You hit the right arrow key. I will warn you that the Quick Start tutorial is not the most exciting thing in the world by any means, but it's certainly something I try to advise people that I work with to at least attempt once. Now, once you have VoiceOver up and running, you have to decide what your VoiceOver modifier keys are going to be. I'm the old school Mac user. I go back to Tiger as far as I'm, when I use VoiceOver, control and option keys are my choice for the VoiceOver modifier keys. On a laptop computer, that's going to be the second and third keys coming from left to right on the bottom of the keyboard. If you have a full-size keyboard, it's going to be the first and second key on the left side of the keyboard, or you also have a control and an option key on the right side of a full-size keyboard as well. The other alternative you have is the caps lock key. Apple added this a few operating systems ago. Some people like that, especially if you're coming over from Windows and you're a former JAWS user or still a current JAWS user, you might find the caps lock key as a better option for the modifiers. Maybe it's just psychological on my behalf, but I just find the caps key a little bit of an awkward stretch, even though it's a single key press as opposed to the double key press for the control and option keys. I still prefer the control and option keys. So once you've decided what your modifiers are going to be, then you combine them with either the arrow keys for navigation, or you'll be combining them with other letters and perhaps other modifiers to carry out VoiceOver commands. Now, by nature, VoiceOver is a keyboard-driven screen reader, just like JAWS or Window Eyes or Dolphin or NVDA. It is true that you can use the trackpad if you have a laptop with the multi-touch glass trackpad, or if you have the Magic Trackpad, if you own a an iMac or a Mac Mini like I do. There is something called Trackpad Commander that will allow you to utilize the gestures that you might be familiar with from iOS. You also can customize the Trackpad Commander as well to add additional functionality. But in my humblest opinion, and it is my humble opinion, not necessarily need to be shared by everybody, I just find that using a keyboard to operate my computer with a screen reader, it just makes more sense. And to me, there's more flexibility. Even though it requires memorization of keyboard commands, I still find this to be the most effective way to approach using my computer. So as far as like basic navigation, I'm on my desktop right now.
Heliocala volume, Oahu volume, Kahuna volume.
These are all connected external drives. They're just the names that I've given the drives. Nothing, you're not mishearing here. For those, I think there's a couple of folks from the Hawaiian Islands who are on this conference. You might notice Haleakala, Kahuna, Lahaina, names of different places and locations in the Hawaiian Islands. Yes, that's what I've given my hard drive names because I wish I was there right now. So these are all connected drives or aliases in the Apple world, which are basically shortcuts to my different drives. Now, the control option arrows are what I'm using. So control option left, control option right, up or down arrows. That's my basic navigation. If I want to activate something, I simply press the control option space bar. Control option space is like your single finger double tap in the iOS world or enter key in the Windows world. Now, while we're on the subject of the enter key, be very, very careful as a Mac user. It does work in certain instances in the same way as it does in Windows, but the one area you want to avoid the enter key like the plague is in Finder, because the enter key being pressed in Finder puts you into
Kahuna, contents selected, edit text.
So it's an edit mode. So you would end up accidentally renaming a drive or an application or a file without intending on doing so. So if you kind of forget and you do it on accident, just hit the escape key.
Desktop, Kahuna mod.
And it will put you right back, it'll get you out of edit mode and back to where you were before. So I have worked with people in the past who have accidentally renamed their hard drive. Now in the Mac world, if I can get there.
Area, Kimo, volume. Leilani, Monakia, sorry, Kimo, Kahuna, Macintosh HD. Volume.
Macintosh HD is your hard drive. It is the equivalent of the C drive in the Windows world. Now, as a side note, you can rename your drives, as you've heard the names of my other drives. It does not impact Mac OS. You can change the name of your hard drive every day if you really wanted to. It does nothing detrimental to your system. If you're bored, if you just find that Macintosh HD is a boring generic name, be my guest. As you can tell, my other drives have different names. I just haven't renamed this particular drive as of yet. Now, if I wanted to open this, I could just press the VO space bar.
Open Macintosh HD window, column view browser.
So I am in Finder right now. Finder is the basic equivalent to what would be like My Computer or Windows Explorer in the Windows world. This is how you view your files and folders on the Mac. And it seems like a simple, basic thing, but you really should understand how Finder works. You should understand where your stuff is being kept on your Mac. So when you open a Finder window, just as a quick little description, from a visual context, you have a toolbar that runs across the top of the screen. On the left-hand side, you have the sidebar, and where I am now on the right-hand side is the browser. Now, this is going to be important when we get a little bit further into this lesson when I start talking about interaction. So just keep that sort of in the back of your mind, that description of the Finder window, because it's going to make a little bit more sense when we get to the world of interaction and explaining to you how that works. Now, as far as VO space goes, just as a couple of other mental notes for everybody, as I said, it's what you use to open items or activate items. It's also typically what you would use to check boxes, select radio buttons. It's also how you would open up, let's say, pop-up menus. What in the Mac world they call pop-up menus, which are basically like drop-down menus. So I'm going to open up just for a quick little demonstration of a pop-up menu that comes to my mind. I'm just going to open up Finder Preferences for a moment here.
Preferences, window, show all file name, minimize, close button, close
I'm
button.
going to
Minimize, zoom, toolbar, show these like hard disk, show these like hard disk, see connected, new Finder, John, new Finder Windows show.
So
new Finder Windows show.
New Finder Windows show. Now, if I navigate to the right,
John, new Finder Windows show, pop-up button.
So you hear it say pop-up button. This is an example of a pop-up menu or a drop-down menu, whatever you want to call it. So the way this works in the Mac world with VoiceOver is you VO space to activate the menu.
Menu checkmark, John.
And if I VO up or down arrow,
desktop,
I get different options on the menu.
Documents, iCloud Drive.
Now this is basically an option when you open a brand new Finder window with Command N. What folder do you want the Mac to use when it opens a new Finder window? And this is a completely user preference. In other words, you decide what you want to do. I like it to open with my home folder, and my home folder is simply called John for simplicity's sake. So I'm just going to hit escape, but if I wanted to choose another location, I would simply VO space to lock it in, and then it would use that as the new location. But as I said,
John,
I like it being my home folder, so I leave it as that. If you are a Mac user, you can make that decision. I believe by default, it usually is something called recent items, unless that has changed. I haven't worked with a client who's running a fresh copy of Catalina right out of the box yet. So I'm not 100% sure if that's still the case, but it was always recent items for a while. So I'm going to close the preferences here with Command W.
List one item select.
Now, while I'm on this subject, let me make this clarification. Simple Mac OS keyboard shortcuts. Yes, there is a difference between Mac OS keyboard shortcuts and VoiceOver shortcuts. There is a myth or a misunderstanding out there that the Mac does not offer the keyboard shortcuts, the number of keyboard shortcuts in the way that Windows does, and that's completely untrue. So the basic rule of thumb, and from my experience, and this is not like the Bible, this is John's, the book according to John here, but from my experience, the way I could say that when I explain to my clients, VoiceOver commands obviously always involve the modifiers, Control, Option, and something or another. Mac OS commands typically involve the Command key or sometimes the Control key with a letter as their, as part of their keyboard shortcut. So for example, Command W closes a window of an application. Command Q quits an application. So let me differentiate. Closing a window leaves the application open. When you do Command Q, you are closing the windows and also closing the application at the same time. So there's a big difference between doing Command W and Command Q. People sometimes, for example, in mail, will accidentally do a Command W and close their inbox. Mail is still open, and VoiceOver will say, mail has no windows, because you have closed the one window that was open in mail. Other applications like Safari, if you have multiple browser windows open, let's say you're holiday shopping or you're shopping for somebody's birthday and you're comparing prices for items on Amazon and Walmart and Overstock, and maybe you have 4 or 5 different Safari windows open. This way you could close a window if you decide, that's a bad price, I don't even want to look at that. So Command W would close that window, but it would leave all the other windows open. So that's a differentiation between those two Mac OS commands. And also, by the way, Command F5 to turn off and turn on VoiceOver is not a VoiceOver keyboard shortcut. That is a Mac OS keyboard shortcut. Now, another thing to know about VoiceOver, which would be very handy, is how to get to menus. Now, in the Windows world, you hit the Alt key to open a window, or you can go directly to a specific window with Alt F or Alt V. In the Mac world, it's unfortunately not as simple, but it's pretty standard. The menus are pretty consistent in the Mac world. So VoiceOver M, VOM, when I say VO, I mean the VoiceOver modifier keys, not the V and the letter O, as I've had a few clients mistakenly believe. So when I say VOM, I mean Control Option M.
Menu bar, Apple.
So when you open a menu, you are always on the Apple menu itself. I'm going to explain that menu in a moment here, but let me just to kind of let you hear. So if you go to the right,
Finder.
You always have the menu directly to the right of the Apple menu of the application that you're currently in. So since I'm in Finder right now, the Finder menu is going to be directly to the right. Now, if I keep going,
File.
you have your standard File, Edit,
View,
Go. Then you have the Go menu in Finder.
Window.
And then you have the Window.
Help.
And Help. So Window and Help are normally on the right-hand side of most menus. The Apple menu is always on the left-hand side. The other kind of menus, just like in Windows, it's obviously going to be based on the application that you're currently in. Usually, though, you have a file edit view of some kind in most applications. Not all, but in most applications, you will find that combination of file edit view and then other menus as well. So let me go back to the Apple menu.
Window.
So I'm just going back to the left with VO left arrow.
Go, View, Edit, File, Finder, Apple.
Now, I'm using the VO navigation here. You can use the regular arrows. Sometimes I get asked that question. Yes, you can. I'm going to show you a reason why I kind of preach using VoiceOver navigation and menus in a moment here. But let me just show you the Apple menu, because this is an important menu. And there's a reason why when you open any menu, it always starts off in Apple, because it always has the most important things that you might need to access. So I'm going to go down the Apple menu.
Apple menu, About This Mac.
About This Mac, which tells you basic information. So if somebody asks you what version of Mac OS you're working in, that's the place you're going to find it.
System Preferences, ellipsis.
This is a shortcut to System Preferences, which is like the control panel for your Mac.
App Store, ellipsis.
The App Store shortcut.
Recent items, submenu.
Recent items, which shows you all of the most recent applications, the previous 10 applications that you have opened. And they are submenus. So you would VO right arrow from that.
Recent items, submenu, App Store.app, Books.app, Calendar.app.
So I just hit VO right arrow, and now I'm going down my recent items.
FaceTime.app.
So these are the apps that I've most recently had open. So let me just go back
Apple
here.
menu, recent items, submenu.
So now I'm going to keep going down the Apple menu.
Force quit, ellipsis, Command
We
Option,
have the
Escape.
Force Quit dialog, which is kind of like the Of course, I can't think of that Windows shortcut that you use to kind of close down applications. I'm telling you, it's only Tuesday and I feel like it's Friday already. Control Alt Delete. That dialogue. That's what the force quit dialogue would do on the Mac side. Shows you all your running applications and you have the ability to force the system to quit them. The only time you would do that is if you're running into issues where an application is hanging. Now, the way you know that in the VoiceOver world is very simple. VoiceOver will repeatedly say, busy, 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 and you can't do anything in that application. The thing about the Mac is because of the way processes are handled, you simply use the Command and the Tab key in the way that you would use Alt-Tab in Windows. So you can cycle through open applications, and then you can get out of that busy, busy, busy loop, and then go to the force quit application dialog and make that application go away, and then you can restart it. So I'm going to continue down the Apple menu.
Sleep.
This is for sleep. If you want to put the computer to sleep,
Restart ellipsis.
restart,
Shut down ellipsis.
shut down,
Lock screen command control.
and then lock
Q.
screen. Now I want to go across to the Go menu here while we're in the menu.
Finder, file, edit, view, go, menu.
So the reason why I emphasize holding down the VoiceOver keys is that when you hold them down, some menus have what they call alternative menu options, and you can only see them by holding down the Option key, or in some cases, holding down the Control key. The Go menu is a great example because there is a couple of shortcuts, including to your user library, that you can only see when you VO down arrow.
Back command, for and recent commit documents command, desktop command, downloads, home command, library command, shift, L.
So you have the library there. There is a keyboard shortcut for it, but if you don't use the VoiceOver keys and you just use the down arrow, you will miss the library key option on the menu.
Library command, shift, L.
Now, the user's home library, just as a side note, for technical reasons, is hidden by default from users. That used to not be the case a while back, but I would say the last 8 or 9 years, they started hiding it. And I guess to protect the user from themselves, I don't really know. I've made my library visible. There is a way you can do that. It's beyond the kind of the stretch of this particular lesson, but if anybody's an experienced Mac user and wants to know how to unhide their library, I can email them the steps, what you have to do that. Or you could just use the keyboard shortcut or get to it from the Go menu. So that's how you access the menus in Mac. Now there is another set of menus that is called the menu extras or the status menu, and visually it's on the right-hand side of the screen. And you do this by doing VOM twice in a row. So you hold down Control Option and you tap the M twice.
Menu extras. Dropbox 98.4.158 up to date.
So the menu extras will have your status indicators, and sometimes third-party applications will put items in the status menu. So you heard I have Dropbox.
Menu
So
extra.
I also have Backblaze.
Backup in sync from Google. Drop displays menu. Time machine.
So
menu
I'm just
extra.
VO right arrowing here across my status menu and menu extras.
Bluetooth. Menu extra. Wi-Fi. 4 bars. Which on 2. Menu extra.
Now, if I wanted to activate a menu here, you do have to keep using the VoiceOver keys on the menu extras. They will not work with the basic arrows. You also have to activate a menu before you can traverse it. So I'm going to VO space on my Wi-Fi here.
Wi-Fi. 4 bars. Which on 2.
So now I'm
Menu.
going to VO down arrow.
Wi-Fi on. Dimmed.
So then we have Wi-Fi on.
Turn Wi-Fi off.
Turn Wi-Fi off.
Personal hotspots. Dimmed.
Personal hotspots, which is the first category you would see in the Wi-Fi.
John's
list.
iPhone.
So I have my
Personal hotspot.
iPhone, my personal hotspot, which I don't know why is showing because I don't have it on right now. But
Checkmark. John 2.
so then there's
Secure
usually
network.
the network that you belong to, which will be checked. But as you go down,
Alice's Wi-Fi. John 1. John 1 up. Join other network. Create network ellipsis.
so there'll be other options here. So if you are joining your Wi-Fi network for the first time, you find it in this list. You VO space. If you have a passcode required, which you really should for security purposes, you just type it in and then hit the enter or VO space, and you should connect to your Wi-Fi network. So that's the easy way to get to your Wi-Fi network from the status menus. So the status menus also have, the volume, time and date, all of that stuff, and they can be customized. Again, if you're an advanced Mac user, there are ways to add additional items to the menu extras if you wanted to do that. So I'm just going to hit escape here to close out of the menu extras. So that's how the menus work in Mac OS. Now, VoiceOver also has a help system. Again, I know in some circles I've heard people say, oh, there's really no help for VoiceOver. You really have to kind of rely on what you find online. That's actually not true. So VOH, Control Option H or Caps Lock H if you choose, that is how you get to the main help area.
VoiceOver help menu 5 items.
So there are 5 items as of Catalina. Prior to Catalina, you would have 6. So I'll explain that in a moment. So as you go down, this is a vertical menu. So I'm going to VO down arrow.
User guide, control option, question.
So the first thing in Catalina you get is user guide. In older versions of Mac OS, this was called online help. And then there was a separate menu item, a 6th menu item for the VoiceOver getting started guide. I think they've just decided to consolidate all that into one menu item. When you VO space on this, it opens the VoiceOver getting started guide. And the only downside, or I guess you'd call it, is you do have to have some basic understanding of VoiceOver navigation, particularly interaction and working with tables to be able to effectively use the user guide, in my humble opinion. I see why Apple did it, because it is well done the way you activate items, but I think for a new user, they overcomplicated it. But again, that's my humble opinion. It doesn't necessarily have to be shared by everybody, but from teaching people for the last 10 years, I just find that it can be a little overwhelming to a new user until they get a little accustomed to navigating with VoiceOver and getting around screens. Once you can do that, then the user guide is really helpful. So the other options in this help menu.
Commands help menu, control option HH.
So we have commands help, and you can get to this with its own shortcut by doing control option H 2 times in a row. If you do it from the regular help menu, it is a sub menu, so you can VO right arrow.
Commands help menu 15 items.
So you have categories that you can work your way down.
General menu, information menu.
So I'm VO down arrowing.
Navigation menu.
Navigation.
Text menu.
Text.
Web menu.
Web.
Find menu.
Find.
Tables menu.
Tables. Now, if you want to see the VoiceOver commands for a category, again, you VO right arrow.
Tables menu 8 items. Jump to header control option vertical line. Move to parent row control option command \.
So it will give you the item and then the VoiceOver keyboard shortcut. Some people will make the observation that some of the keyboard commands do not have shortcuts assigned to them. That is not a mistake. That's not an error. That VoiceOver is missing something. There are just some commands that don't have keyboard shortcuts. If it's important enough to you, you can use what are called keyboard commander or numpad commander to assign those particular VoiceOver keys your own commands if you so do so. And you might, I don't know, but you might be able to even do that in system preferences under keyboard if you know exactly how to write out that particular VoiceOver command. That might be a backdoor way to do it as well. I have not experimented with that, so I am not going to say that will work or not for sure. So I'm going to back out here.
Commands help, VoiceOver help menu on commands help menu, control option.
So I'm going to continue down.
Keyboard help, control option K.
So keyboard help, control option K. This is a great key describer. If you are new to a Mac keyboard or a keyboard in general, you can use VOK to get there, and you can press any key and it will be you'll be told what that key is, or you can do VoiceOver key combinations like VOA, VOB, VOC, and it will tell you what that VoiceOver command does. It is also a kind of a poor man's way of using a typing tutor if you don't have one on hand, because as long as you don't press the escape key, you could work your, your home row. You can do typing exercises. It's not going to type anything out, unfortunately, but at least you get the auditory feedback. And it is a way just to practice your typing and to get used to the reach of the keys on your new keyboard if that's what you need to do. And escape, as I said, will close the keyboard help mode.
Sounds help menu.
Sounds help does not have a shortcut. VO right arrow will get you into the submenu. And what it does is it plays a sound and it tells you what that sound does. So I'm just going to do a couple of examples here, but I don't know, because some of the Apple sounds they use are very subtle.
Sounds help menu, 58 items. Announcement, basic alert. Application updated an item. Attachment begin. Attachment end. Boundary reached. Braille display connected. Braille display disconnected.
So you'll hear the little sound and it tells you what that sound indicates. And I'm a big audio guy. I like sound effects a lot more than I like speech. I like low verbosity when I'm using my computer. So I happen to pay attention to the sound effects because sometimes they will really give you a lot of insight without even need to be told what's going on. So let me go back out to the menu for the last couple of items.
VoiceOver help menu on sounds help menu. Quick start tutorial control. Quick start tutorial.
So quick start tutorial is the last item in the help. This is one of the ways you can get to it if you want to restart the quick start tutorial. You'll also notice that it says
quick start tutorial control option FN command 8.
So control option command FN and function key 8. That is a bunch of keys for sure. You may, if you do, I'm going to show you this in a little bit to reverse the way the keys will work with the function keys. I talked about this, that in the previous lesson about the way Macs come out of the box as far as the function keys work with VoiceOver. I'll get to that in a moment. But this is the way you can get to the quick start tutorial as well as the keyboard shortcut. So that's the VoiceOver help system. So I'm going to hit escape.
Applications.
To get back to
Cores, fold.
Where I am here back in Finder. Yeah, let me talk about that first. So as I said in the previous lesson, by default, a new Mac, when you try to do the function keys with VoiceOver command, so in other words, Control Option F8 would normally open the VoiceOver utility. You might find that this doesn't work on new Macs. You might have to switch a preference in System Preferences under Keyboard to make it work properly. Because normally, if you press the function keys by themselves, so for example, F11, F10 will raise or lower the volume. I believe F1 and F2 brightens or lowers the brightness of the display. So if you have this situation set up, you have to include the FN key. The FN key is the far left bottommost key on a laptop keyboard. On a full-size keyboard, unfortunately, it's in the 6-pack. It's above the delete key. So it might not be a great reach on a full-size keyboard. But as I said, it can be reversed. So the way you would reverse this is you'd go into System Preferences, and you can do that as I showed you earlier.
Menu bar.
From the Apple menu.
Apple, about this, System Preferences, ellipsis. Cores, folder, System Preferences, window, toolbar.
So I'm going to just do a quick little, I'm going to get into the preference panes here. I'm going to interact. I'm going to talk about interaction momentarily here.
In preference panes.
All right, I'm going to hit K for keyboard.
Keyboard button.
I'm going to VO space.
Loading keyboard, window, toolbar.
And I'm going to VO right arrow past a whole bunch of stuff. So, I'm not trying to leave you guys out, but I just want to quickly get to this
Key
place.
text, shortcuts, input sources, dictation, key, delay at 85.40% off, slow, fast, long, short, show keyboard and emoji view, use F1, F2, etc. Keys as standard function keys, checkbox.
That's the setting you want to find. It's a checkbox. Use F1 through F12 as standard function keys. By default, this is unchecked. If you check it, it reverses the behavior of the function keys. So, in other words,
Finder,
quit out
window.
of here. If I do Control Option F8,
opening VoiceOver utility.
It works as expected. However, if I want to raise or lower the volume, I now have to include my FN key to lower or raise the volume of my computer. So that it's up to you as a VoiceOver user. I would, if you're the only person using the computer, I would make the change. The only problem this would cause is if you're sharing with a sighted person, they might get messed up a little bit if you make that change. So take that into consideration before you decide whether you want to officially make that change on your Mac. Okay, so this brings us to the wonderful world of interaction. So interaction is really a VoiceOver concept that sometimes people kind of get tripped up on if you're coming over from Windows, because there's really nothing like it in Windows. And what this does is it allows you to take, you got to think of it as, even though we're blind, it's taking a closer look at something. It's drilling down into the interface to allow you to navigate or see areas that you can't normally see. So again, let me see where we are here.
VoiceOver utility.
Let me get out of here.
Finder, cores window.
Okay, so
out of column view.
So when you open your Finder, for example, of my previous example, you're on the browser side of the Finder window. Now, as I said, there's 3 parts to the Finder window.
Verticals, sidebar, table.
So you got the sidebar,
toolbar,
and the toolbar. Now you notice
sidebar, verticals, column view, browser. What?
I'm just hearing these 3 areas. I don't know what is contained in any of these areas as of yet. I have to interact with the specific area to then be able to navigate what is contained within that area. So if I interact with the browser, and the interaction key combination is Control-Option-Shift down arrow.
In column view, browser, cores, folder,
okay.
Applications, folder, cores, library, opt, folder, system, folder, users, folder.
So I'm navigating the root directory of my Finder. Now, most people are not going to hear a lot of these folders. The only ones you're going to hear are applications, library, system, and users. I have additional folders because my operating system has been upgraded so many times since 2005 that it's carried over a lot of other additional junk folders that I don't even know what some of these things contain, but I don't want to start deleting stuff just in case it might cause problems for me. But now that I am interacted with my browser side, I can now freely go around and navigate through my file and folder structure. But I can't get to the sidebar or the toolbar anymore because now I'm locked into the browser. So in order for me to do that, I have to stop interacting, which is VO Shift.
Out of column view, browser, 1 item selected. Users group.
So now,
verticals, sidebar, table, toolbar.
I can navigate to the specific areas. If I want to see what's in the toolbar, I have to interact.
In toolbar, 8 items, /forward group, view, radio group, menu button, action, menu button.
So now I can see what's in the toolbar because I've interacted. I'll VO Shift up
out
arrow.
Toolbar, sidebar, table, verticals, column view, browser.
So that's a basic demonstration of how the interaction concept works on a everyday situation such as Finder. Now, at this point, people will say, okay, John, I get it. I understand how interaction works, but when do you really know? How do you really know when you interact and when you have to interact and when it's not necessary? So there's 2 answers to that question. First one is basically, I'm not brushing people off when I say it's experience. When you use the Mac long enough, you instinctively start to learn just by doing when you need to interact with something and when it's not necessary. However, that doesn't typically help people. So I've sort of come up, and this is my theory, this is not anything official from Apple, but it seems to work. I've discovered that there basically are 7 element types that require interaction. I group a few item types. Maybe other people will separate them and have their own different way of explaining this, but I try to keep it simple. by only limiting it down to 7. You heard 3 of them right here in this Finder example. Browsers, sidebars, which are actually tables, and toolbars. So there's 3 of the 7 items. Now, you will also find tables, for example, in mail. Your inbox is a table.
Mail, 15 new item. Mail. Cal Norquist, Michelle Peterson.
So now I'm on my inbox, which is a table. Each message is a row in the table. So I would have to interact, as I've automatically interacted here because I was looking at mail before. But normally when you open mail, you usually have to interact with the table before you can use the VO up and VO down arrows for standard navigation. And the reason why you can also you should interact, because I know some people are probably on this call right now going, well, you can use the regular arrows and go up and down the list. Yeah, you can. But if you want to use VOJ to read the content of a message, you can only do that if you've interacted with the table first. And then you could use VOJ, which is the jump command that will allow you to read.
Hey, John, I wanted to follow up. I understand you may have some questions regarding jump now. I'd be happy to help.
So that's, and then I could VOJ
in messages table
back to the messages table. The cool thing about VOJ, by the way, is it automatically uninteracts and then interacts with the content. That's another reason why I love this command, and I don't use enter to open mail messages. I just use VOJ. So, as I said, that's an example of tables. You also have scroll areas. Now, scroll areas involve text as well as web content. So let's jump over.
Find message text at Callan, Safari, Dan Bongino.
Let's see.
The items show a guide to using audio hijack with VoiceOver vertical line AppleVista window. Search.
Okay, so I'm just going to go over to
search navigation. A guide to using audio. A guide to using audio hijack with VoiceOver vertical line AppleVista web content.
So web content. That's what I wanted you to hear. That requires
in a guide to using
interaction. Once you interact with the web content, you can use standard VO navigation.
Heading level 2, main menu, apps, forum, blog, podcast, bug tracker.
And you can then, be able to get around the website. But web content is an area that does require interaction, just like text does. Text within a word processor such as Pages, Microsoft Word, text edit. If you want to proofread what you've typed, most likely you're going to have to interact with the text area before you can actually, do any changes or read character by character, word by word, et cetera, et cetera. So scroll areas might also be just called scroll areas. So when I was in system preferences before, let me go back there.
System preferences, window, toolbar.
So you always start off, most apps you always start off on the toolbar, with the exception of like mail and a few, but for the most part when you open an application. So I'm just going to go to
preference panes, scroll area.
So you heard preference panes, scroll area. So sometimes a scroll area is identified as a scroll area. And again, you interact with VO shift down arrow.
In preference panes, scroll area, 32 items, general button.
Now I'm just going to
desktop and screensaver
VO
button.
right arrow.
Dock button, mission control button, Siri button.
And as I did before, you can also do the single letter navigation. So when I went to keyboard, I just hit the letter K.
Keyboard button.
To get directly to that specific item. I could do that with
time machine
T
button.
for time machine.
Screen time button.
S. I could do that for any. If I know what preference I'm looking for, I can do single letter, or I can do a quick, the first couple of letters, of a specific preference.
The desktop and screensaver.
So I just
button.
did DE to get the desktop and screensaver. Okay, so that is scroll areas, number 4. Number 5 is what are called sliders or value indicators. I'm going to go to another preference to show you that here.
Energy saver button. Loading energy saver.
So I'm going to go to energy saver preferences.
Turn display 1 hour, slider.
So this is when you can
turn display off after.
Turn display off after. So if I VO right arrow,
1 hour, slider,
it's a slider. So I interact with this
1 hour.
slider and I can change the value of this particular item. I have mine set to an hour because I'm normally working with somebody and I can't have my screen keep constantly going into sleep mode, etc. So I just leave it as an hour. But if I interact here,
in slider,
I can adjust.
45 minutes, 30 minutes,
So VO left arrow,
45 minutes, 1 hour,
VO right arrow. So I'm going to leave it as it
out of
was.
slider,
So that's a slider. Someone has unmuted, please, and there's a lot of noise in the background. If they can just mute themselves, I'd appreciate it. So that's a slider. Groups or collections is the next item. So groups or collections. So I'm trying to remember. Now, groups you might see, for example, if you do a search in the App Store for a particular app, the search results in the new version of the App Store will come up as groups. For some reason in Finder, it says folders are groups, but that's not necessarily the case. Groups, I don't know why it does that in Finder, and that does mislead people sometimes. But just keep in mind that folders are not groups. Once you interact with the browser, you're good to go, and you can navigate around your file and folder structure. The last item are called grids. Now, grids are the best way I can show you a grid is, let me get to calendar.
so mail, Finder, message, text, calendar, window.
Excuse me, John.
Yes.
Robert Westfall, you are unmuted. Can you please mute yourself?
Thanks, Cliff, because I know somebody was.
Vertical splitter, Tuesday, June 2nd, Tuesday, June 2nd, 2000, no visible title to it, today, next month, grid.
So the calendar has a grid. So if we interact with the grid.
In grid, Sunday, May 31st, list. Monday, June 1st, 6 events, list. Today, Tuesday, June 2nd, 6
so
events.
I'm just VO right arrowing. So the way the calendar grid works, it's a 6x7 grid. So you have the 6 weeks. This is the month viewing calendar. You have the 6 weeks that make up the current month and the 7 days of each week. So now that I'm on Tuesday, if I VO up arrow.
Today, Tuesday, June 2nd, Tuesday, June 9th.
Now I'm VO down arrow.
Tuesday, June 16th, one event list.
So as I go down, I'm going down from Tuesday to Tuesday. If I VO right arrow.
Wednesday, June 17th, lit. Thursday, June 18th, one event list.
You got to remember that, like I said, it's a 6x7 grid. So that's, the best example that I can come up with off the top of my head. Music has a grid too. If you look at album and artist view for your music library too. Not as common as scroll areas or, toolbars by certainly, any stretch, but grids are the 7th item. So again, browsers, toolbars, tables, which can be considered to be sidebars, scroll areas, which include web content and text content, groups or collections, values, indicators or sliders, and then grids are your 7 item types that require interaction. So just, I don't expect anybody to remember that off the top of your heads right now. But just as you use the Mac, hopefully these items will start to stick in your brain. And as you come across them, you'll start to kind of, oh yeah, that's right. It's a slider. I got to interact with the slider. Now you can have multiple levels of interaction. So as I did with the calendar.
Vertical split toolbar, Tuesday, June 2nd, 2020, month calendar area group.
So group, month calendar area group. So if I interact first with that.
In Tuesday, June 2nd, 2020, month calendar area group. Today button. Next month button.
So I'm VO right arrowing.
Grid.
And there's my grid that I interact again.
In grid, Sunday, May 31st.
So there's 2 levels of interaction in the calendar that's required. You will find this in other applications as well. Now, if I interact with the day.
In Thursday, June 18th, one event list, Roundtable podcast, starts on June 18th, 2020 at 5:00 p.m.
So that's the one event I have so far scheduled for June the 18th. So when you interact another level, I can see what is on my calendar for that particular day. Now, it is possible, though, to interact too far. with an item. So let me go over
System prep Safari Mail Finder User.
So if I interact with
in column view browser users
if
folder
I interact too far with users,
in users folder 2 items image John image John
I
folder.
can't go any far. I'm stuck. But if I stop
John.
interacting with John,
docs group
I can go right into my docs folder.
John group users group.
Or I can go back out to users. Now VO left arrow. Now, while we're on the subject of Finder, before I forget, so people don't, because they might not recognize this, I use what is called column view. There are 4 views in Finder in Catalina. You have icon view, list view, columns, and I believe the other one is called gallery, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see.
As gallery, check.
Yeah,
gallery.
gallery.
List 1 item.
I prefer columns. Doesn't mean you have to, but for teaching purposes, I like columns because what's on the level, so if you go up and down a column.
Shared, John,
let me go
user,
back out to here.
System, opt, library, cores, application.
This is all on the same level, but if I go to the right,
1Password.
I'm expanding. I'm going deeper into a folder structure. So this is my application folder. I'm just going to go down.
ADBYY Fine Reader Express Accessible Event Host Acquisition.app Adapter.app Adobe Acrobat Reader Adobe Digital Editions Amersoft DVD Alarm Clock Pro.app.
So that would be my applications. If I go to the left,
applications group,
I back out again. So from a teaching standpoint for Finder, this allows me to kind of explain to people and, really kind of visualize that you're at multiple, so this is the root directory. And then when you go down into the user folder,
library, opt, system, users, John group,
you go into the user folder list. So for me, there's only
shared folder,
me and the shared folder.
John.
But if I was sharing this Mac with other people, they would also be other people's user home folders. Now, once you go into a home folder,
docs group,
you're in their actual home folder and you can see
downloads, Dropbox, folder, games, folder, iCloud Drive, if archive, Music Caliber, library, folder, movies, music.
So
folder.
Those are all my subfolders. Some of these have been created by third-party apps such as Dropbox, and there was another one in there which I don't even know what that came from years ago. But usually you're going to see downloads, movies, music, pictures, public, unless you are not using iCloud documents in the cloud. Keep this in mind. When you set up your Mac with the setup assistant and you sign into iCloud, by default, it will have you do desktop and documents in the cloud. This throws people off because when they look at their home folder, they do not have a desktop or a documents folder because they're in iCloud. Now, I have a folder that I created
iCloud, game, docs, folder.
Called Docs. I made this folder. This was not created by the system because I use iCloud documents and desktop in the cloud. So if you have your desktop and documents in the cloud, Command Shift and the letter I is the shortcut to open up your iCloud drive.
iCloud Drive, list 1 item selected. Desktop, folder, documents.
And there's
folder.
my desktop and documents folder in iCloud Drive. So that's how I would have to see what's in my documents folder because I use it because this way I can access, like the Mac for the Blind, my client files and stuff. So it doesn't matter whether I'm at home on my Mini or I take my laptop up to Buffalo where my youngest brother lives, or I'm at my girlfriend's house. I can access my Mac stuff, my Mac for the Blind stuff, because they're in the documents in the cloud. So this is an optional thing, though. Sometimes people think they get stuck with it. If you choose during the setup assistant not to have them in the cloud, you will have a desktop and documents folder in your home folder. You can turn it off later if you accidentally turn it on. Nothing is reversible on the, everything is reversible on the Mac, I should say. You can go into System Preferences, select your iCloud information, and you can turn off the desktop and documents. A little bit beyond the scope of this particular lesson, but just keep in mind that it is doable for you to undo that if you accidentally, just like people will accidentally turn on FileVault during a setup assistant, or maybe they don't want to use Siri on the Mac. So there's things that, for whatever the reason, they are set to work by default. You can always undo them later in System Preferences. System Preferences is the key to your Mac as far as customization and making changes to the way the system works. It is the equivalent of the Windows control panel in the Windows world. So, you know, that is like the important application for you to be able to access. Okay, so that is the interaction section. So there are some other VoiceOver odds and ends that I also like to mention to people. As far as like I like to call this informational commands. So for example, people will ask me, well, how do I know where I am on the Mac? If I walk away from the computer and I come back, how do I know where I am? Well, there's a few ways you can find out. If you do VOF1 by itself.
Finder, 13 running applications, current activity VoiceOver settings.
So it tells you the application that you're currently in. It also tells you how many applications are open. And since I was messing with activities the other day for another client of mine, I had created a test activity. So it's telling me that I also have the, I don't even know what the heck it just said.
Application close, Finder, 13 running applications, current activity VoiceOver settings.
Yeah, VoiceOver settings, which is the standard default VoiceOver settings. If you don't use activities, you won't hear that, but you will hear the number of applications. And yes, you did hear right, 13 running applications. That's the beauty of the Mac. You can run multiple applications and it does nothing to hurt your system. Now, if you do VOF1 twice.
Finder, 13 running application chooser menu, 14 items.
So you'll open up the application chooser menu. This shows you in a vertical list.
System dialogues menu.
So I have a system dialog. That's not considered a running application, but I do have system dialogues I'll take care of later. I know what they are.
Calendar, previous
So
menu.
these are all my apps.
Finder, current menu, books menu, FaceTime menu, mail menu, messages menu, music menu, numbers menu, pages menu, preview menu, Safari menu.
So if I wanted to open any of these apps, I could just VO space and jump right over to that.
Safari menu, 10 items, a guide to using audio.
So these are all my open windows in
The items
Safari.
showing up.
So
A guide to a guide
we'll just VO space on that one and go
to
back
using
to
audio.
Safari. Now remember though, Command Tab is like Alt Tab. So you don't necessarily have to use the application chooser menu.
Finder, calendar, system mail, messages, text edit, books, numbers.
So I'm just VO, I should say Command Tabbing here. If I do Shift Command Tab,
FaceTime,
it goes
music,
backwards.
pages, preview, books, text edit, messages, mail, system, calendar, Finder.
So that's, to me, you know, I mean, using the application, I'm not trying to discourage anybody from using the application chooser menu, but, you know, sometimes it's just quicker to do Command Tab or Shift Command Tab. Now, if you do VOF2,
Documents, window, 3 windows.
it tells you how many windows are open in the application that you're currently in and what the current window is. So I'm looking at my documents, you know, my docs in Finder here, but I have 3 windows. So obviously, if you do VOF1 twice to get the application chooser menu,
Window chooser menu, 4 items.
you can do the window chooser menu as well.
Documents, Julia Christensen, docs. Go to desktop, control option shift.
So you
D.
always have the go to desktop as an option, but I have multiple Finder windows open right now.
Hey, John, we're about an hour in. We got a few questions here. I don't know when you want to answer them or.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to them in a moment. I just want to finish up the informational stuff, and then we'll move over to the Q&A here.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was just looking at the time myself, because you know I don't want to run too far, and I want to give people a chance to ask questions. Okay, so like I said, that's the window chooser menu. So just like you have the ability to do Command Tab or Shift Command Tab to run through cycle through your open applications, you also
Documents.
have Command Accent as a Mac OS command to switch through your windows.
Cycle through windows. Julia Chris, cycle through windows. Docs, window, column view, browser. What?
So Command, or you can do the Shift Command Accent.
Julia Christensen, documents, window,
To
document.
go backwards as well. So again, it's up to you which way you'd prefer.
It's 2 o'clock.
If you'd want to do the, you know, the window chooser menu, or you would rather, you know, use the Mac or keyboard shortcut. Now there is a listing on my website, and you can just do a search in the Apple support for Mac OS keyboard commands for Catalina, and you'll find the current list of Mac OS commands. I usually make that into a text file and put it up on my website, but I don't think I've gotten around to doing that yet. I can't remember if I did or not, but I might have a link on my website to that article. But it's there. Like I said, you can do a search on the Apple website under support and get the Mac OS keyboard shortcut list. Believe it or not, there are a lot of them. Some of them, though, do not work. I will warn you. The text navigation commands that they reference, most of them for some reason don't seem to work, or at least I've not been able to get them to work in a document. Okay, so like I said, those are the VoiceOver informational commands. The last thing I want to mention, and then we'll take questions, is the VoiceOver utility. And I'm not going to get into depth with the utility because that would take an hour plus within itself. I just want you to understand that this is the VoiceOver control panel that allows you to customize VoiceOver.
Opening VoiceOver utility. VoiceOver utility window, display welcome dialog. When VoiceOver starts, welcome, speak the utility categories.
So you have a utilities categories table. So you interact with the table.
In utility categories, table, general.
So we have
selected,
general,
verbosity,
speech,
navigation,
web,
sound,
visuals, commanders, braille,
activities,
and activities. Now, some of these preferences have subcategories. So let me go up to
web, navigate, speech,
verbosity here. So I'll stop interacting with the table.
Out of utility categories.
And I will navigate to the right.
Speech, selected, tab, 1 of 5.
So you notice the subcategories are presented as tabs. So the first tab is always selected by default, but if you want to change the preferences that are being shown, you can select a different tab. So if I
Braille, text tab, 3 of 5. Selected text tab, 3 of 5.
And I keep going to the
announcements,
right.
hints, text, punctuation, sum, punctuation, pop-up button, repeated punctuation, spoken with count, repeat while typing, speak, characters and words. What?
So you will see this for some of the categories in the VoiceOver utilities, like Braille has subcategories, the web has subcategories, Commanders obviously has subcategories. So you have to activate the tab to see the preferences that are associated with that specific category. And now you also have the ability to import and export your VoiceOver utility preferences. So if you want to experiment and you're afraid you're going to blow something up, you can always save them. You also can restore them from the file menu.
Menu bar, voice up file.
So if you go down the file menu,
file, import preferences, ellipsis, command shift, export preferences, ellipsis,
export,
set up portable preferences, ellipsis,
set up portable preferences if you want to put them on a thumb drive,
reset basic VoiceOver preferences, ellipsis, reset custom VoiceOver preferences, reset all VoiceOver preferences, ellipsis.
So you have different options that you can do in case you blow up your VoiceOver utility preferences while you're experimenting. So you always have a parachute. You always have a way out. You can put them back to factory defaults, and then you will be able to start over. Or you can export them if you get them to a point that you like them, and you say, you know what, I still want to tweak them a little bit more, but I like them the way they are. You can export them and save them as a file. And in this way, if you ever do blow up your preferences, you can always bring them back. And the portable preferences, by the way, allows you to take a USB thumb drive and go to other Macs, turn on VoiceOver, and load your preferences. So you can kind of not change somebody else's preferences while you use their Mac, or maybe you're helping them, you're troubleshooting for them. And this way you have your preferences temporarily on their system. And then when you're done, you just eject the thumb drive and they get their preferences back to the way that they were. So the VoiceOver utility is chock full of different things to, that you can set, different preference panes. It's my course, so I can plug myself here. I do have audio tutorials, as I've mentioned to you guys. You are entitled for registering to this course. Those of you who have not taken advantage, you can get one of the audio tutorials, whether it's Mac or iOS, for free. You also can use the coupon code MACCourse20, one word, MACCOURSE20 at checkout. You have to put that in the edit box A few people have bought the tutorials and did not put the coupon code in the edit field and were charged full price. You have to type that into the edit field before you check out, and then you'll get a 20% discount on everything that you purchase. I have one on the VoiceOver utility. I have a audio tutorial on the Finder, on system preferences. I've been updating a lot of the tutorials to reflect stuff that's happened in the last, Catalina, Mojave, etc., and try to make it more of a current kind of tutorial in case there have been changes. All right, so there is your VoiceOver Basics course. Like I said, I tried to touch on as many things as possible. Hopefully that this stuff will be very helpful to you guys, and you'll be able to get some mileage out of your Mac, or at least going in the right direction with your Mac. The course on Thursday, June the 4th at 1 p.m. Eastern, we'll be talking specifically about Safari and talking about how to web browse, the reader feature, things like that. So that will be specifically for web browsing. And then next week on Tuesday the 9th, we will have, I believe it's 1:30 p.m. That's going to be just an overview. I'm kind of jumping around to each of the major applications, giving you sort of a crash course with VoiceOver. Maybe not, some apps I might be able to get into a little bit of depth. Some I don't know how much depth. I want to try to, cover as many things as possible, and just give people, I might even show you some third-party apps if I got any that come to mind that will also, I can demonstrate. So why don't we move over to the Q&A, Cliff, and if you got some questions racked up there.
All right. The first question is, somebody said, Hual says she can't get the caps lock key become the modifier key, so she's been using the VoiceOver keys. I guess she wants to know how it's possible or what she can troubleshoot to do that.
You probably have to go into VoiceOver utility under under the general category. There's a pop-up menu that allows you to use either the caps lock key, the control option, or you can use them both. So you might have to change that pop-up button to just the caps lock, or if you want to use them both. Once you adjust that, it should work fine.
Somebody wants to know, is it possible to set interaction commands with the numpad?
Yes. We didn't get a chance to talk about the commanders. By default, the numpad commander does have it set up. I believe it's the 7 and the 9 keys will start and stop interacting. I've changed my numpad commanders. I actually use plus and minus as my start interacting and stop interacting keys. But yes, it is possible. I really highly recommend that you look into the numpad commander. Again, not to plug myself, but I do have a tutorial on all the commanders as well.
All right, the next question is, there we go. The next question is, I guess you were talking about the docs in the cloud. Somebody said if they're not in the cloud, where do they find them?
They're going to be in your home folder. So when you open up the home folder, which is the folder that's going to have your name in some way, shape, or form. Mine is just John, but normally when you set up the Mac, it puts your full name as one word. I just didn't want that. I edited to just John. So if your name is, James Smith, your home folder is going to be called James Smith, one word. When you go into there, if you're not using documents and desktop in the cloud, you will see desktop, documents, downloads, movies, music, pictures, and public as your 7 default folders. If you have it in the cloud, you're not going to see desktop and documents. You'll only see the other 5 folders.
All right, and the last one says, is there a way to get the folder path spoken with the command? It says VL seems to announce the folder that they're currently in. I don't understand that one.
I am not sure. There is I think you can view, I think you can turn on, if you look in view, under the view menu, there's a couple
in
of
column view, that's what they're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know in column view. I think in list view, you might have a better chance of seeing that. Again, there is a trade-off. I like column view. I know a lot of blind Mac users who prefer list view. That's really your choice. The reason why I don't like teaching for list view is that when you expand a folder, it's a vertical list. You really don't have the idea of the depth of your folder structure because the way the folders open. Once you get used to it, once you understand the levels, then by all means, I mean, it's your Mac. You can use whatever system you want, you know?
All right, and the last question I have here is somebody's talking about it being difficult to edit a contact on the Mac. I've never had any trouble with that. I think the thing that they're not doing is you have to interact with that contact and hit Command L, if I'm not mistaken, to edit the contact.
Yes, Command L will put you in edit mode. Then you have to be really careful because for the contact details are in a table view. I don't know why. You might have to use the tab and the shift tab to make sure that you get to the proper edit fields before, you know, if you want to change. And there are buttons to, like, if you don't have an email address for that person yet, you might have to VO space on the add email, and then it will put you into the field to type out the email address. Contacts is a little dicey, in my opinion, in Catalina, and it was the same thing in Mojave, but it's doable. You just kind of have to sort of slug your way through it a little bit.
Yeah, I kind of prefer doing it on my iPhone.
Yeah, that's funny. I for a long time, I was in the opposite camp where I would do everything on the Mac, but at this point, I prefer doing contacts on the iPhone.
Somebody says they have a touch bar. Is that going to be useful with VO?
Yes, there's a lot of controversy on this, and people have been on public lists basically trashing the touch bar. And it's let me put it to you this way: it's not easy when you first look at it, but if you spend time working with it, you can really customize the touch bar. It works with VO. It's kind of like an iPhone screen. You sort of have to slide your finger and double tap on items to get them to work. And the cool thing about the touch bar, in my humble opinion, is that it can be customized, just like a sighted person can do it. So you can add specific features or, you know, options that you would normally have to go, you know, on you know, let's say the menu bar or whatever to do. You can add them right to the touch bar and have them, you know, an easy access.
Yeah, and that was our last question. Touch bar, I had one before I got my 2018 Mac Mini, and it's all about people not wanting change. If you play with it, if you experiment with it, if you let yourself make mistakes and fix them, then it's fine. I mean, I've used it very successfully and actually prefer it over the function keys myself. So
yeah, it's just, it's like anything else. I think it's like when the iPhones dropped the home button. A lot of blind people panicked, and a lot of blind people were concerned. It's really just something you just got to get used to. Apple has tried to make, Apple's really trying to, anything they add, any feature, any new device, they try to make accessible in some way. They find some way to do it. So the touch bar is no different. It's just different.
Right.
You just have to play with it, and you have to use it. And if you don't want to use it, then don't use it. I'm not trying to force people. I'm not trying to shame people into using it. I just don't like when people say, I just don't like, that, like I said, I don't like it. People saying it's useless. You can't use it. You can't use it. Yes, you can.
Yeah. And I must have missed this one. I guess somebody's asking for, if somebody's asking for the 7 steps to be emailed to them about showing the library.
Yeah, just email me privately, and I will send you those steps. I got to get them out of the ACSP guide.
Stephanie, the answer to your question is yes. She's asking if you can create a email list on the Mac. That's actually the only place you can do it unless you go on iCloud.com.
Yeah, you have to do it in contacts. You have to use, non-contiguous selection. You got to go to your main contacts table, select the people one by one, and then do a VO Shift M. And from there's going to be an option, new group from selection. You VO space, you give the group a name, and all those people you've selected go into that group. That's the easiest, straightforward way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, because you basically got to copy and paste.
Yeah, that's the long way is to individually copy and paste and go over to that group and paste it in there. You know, so it's really, you know, I think
Somebody's asking how to check the battery status on the laptop. I mean, that's VOM twice and all the way over to the right.
yeah, you'd have to go over to the right, but there is an Apple script. It's on my website. If you go under to the freeware section, under resources, I have a battery script you can download, and then you can attach that to either a numpad commander or a keyboard commander shortcut. And like, for example, with me, right option B and keyboard commander will start, you know, will read me the battery status of my laptop.
Somebody just asked, how do they start customizing their toolbar? Can you let them know how to do steps? I think that's probably another class for another day, I guess.
I mean,
but
you would really just have to go to the, I think it's under the view menu. There is an option in every single app that says customize touch bar. And then what it is there is like a list of things you interact with the area, and there's a list of things you can add to the touch bar, your VO space on it, and you should see it appear on the touch bar. You may have to play with it a little bit, but it's there.
yeah. And there's another question here says they don't, well, it's not a really question. They're saying they don't know how to add a script.
You don't have to. You just download the script. You just keep it in your downloads folder, or your wherever you know, it's easy to find. And then when you go into keyboard commander, for example, you just assign that. There's an option in the keyboard commander. If you go all the way to the bottom of the menu, it's customize. And then the option in the submenu for customize, one of them is Apple script. You VO space on that, and you just point it to that script in the dialogue, and it becomes, like I said, I use right option B, and it will read me the laptop.
Yeah, I use right option G for mine when I'm on my MacBook Air. So, and that was the last question. They're asking, do you have to keep the script in downloads?
No, you don't have to. You can put it anywhere you want. I actually just keep it in a subfolder that I created for those things.
The person that was asking about creating the group and contest is asking for step-by-step instructions. I guess he could email you with that question.
I think I might have I don't remember, but if you look on my Apple slices, I think I have an Apple slice that goes over doing that, if I remember correctly. If I'm wrong, then yell at me, but I thought I did do one.
And I know this is a Mac class, but I'll send you, or you might already have it, the keyboard list that I have for iOS, and then you can clean it up and put it on your website if you so choose.
Yeah, you know what? Send me that, because I do want to put that on my website, because I don't think I have a recent one.
Yeah, go through it, because I think a couple of them repeat because I got them from multiple sources, and I just haven't had time to go through and take the duplicates out. So
yeah, I'll take a look at it.
Let me see. I think we got one more question here then. Somebody's asking, what's the Apple slices?
That's my mini lessons. If you look at the website, I have the audio tutorial series, but I also have something I call Apple slices, which are very, like 5 minutes. They're just mini lessons that target a specific, feature or a task to do on the Mac or in iOS.
And unless somebody chimes in before you sign off, that is the last question. Oh, they're asking if the next class is Thursday at 1. I think that's correct. What you said.
Yes, Thursday at 1 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time.
Yep, that's the last question then.
It's somebody, I thought I heard somebody else ask. Yes, 6 o'clock your time. Yes, I heard that one. Yeah, just check. I thought we missed somebody else's in there, but.
Let me see if I can. Somebody said, thanks very much. Come on now.
I thought I heard somebody else's question. I just want to make sure I don't miss anybody's.
John, I'm sorry. This is Vicki. I have a question. I tried to create new document, and I did Command-Shift-N for new new document.
Command
But when I
N.
did that, oh, is it just Command
Just Command
N?
N, yeah. Just Command N.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, the question we missed, John, was no, wasn't a question. Well, I guess it was. They said, "How do you get the go-to tutorial?" Is what they were asking.
The which tutorial?
The go-to library tutorial.
Oh, just email me. You know, I mean, to make the library visible. Yeah, I'll
Yes.
just email me and I'll send you the steps from the guide how to do it, because they've changed it slightly in Catalina, because everything with Catalina is a lot of security stuff that goes on. I don't even think I got into it in the last lesson because I didn't want to bore people with all the technical specifics about the T2 chip and, you know, the security utility and all that stuff.
John, one more question. How do you get to the VoiceOver tutorial?
The quick start tutorial is in the help menu. It's the last item, or you can do Control Option Command F8 is the keyboard shortcut.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
John, I have a very quick question. When you were in the system area, you interacted, and then when you found keyboard, you press VO spacebar.
Yes.
And when you were in the utility for VoiceOver, you interacted, and then when you found speech or verbosity, rather, you stopped interacting.
Yes,
and
it's different. Yeah.
Yes, I was confused by that.
Yeah, it's different in the VoiceOver utility. System preferences is a different way of activating the preferences. The VoiceOver utility basically uses that table. You select an item from that table and you stop interacting, and then you'll see the screen will reflect the category. Like I said, some categories have subcategories, so you might have to do a VO space on a tab if you want to, you know, see that specific subcategory.
Thank you.
Hey, John, this is Mike. I don't have a headset. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
A couple questions. One is I wanted to ask, you had mentioned that you will provide some one-on-one lessons.
Yes.
How long and how much? And
if you want to take advantage of registering here, it's half price, which is $30. I do hour lessons. If you have monetary situations, I understand, obviously blind people, some people are still on, you know, are on Social Security, et cetera, et cetera. Speak to me privately and we can work something out. I don't make people commit. In other words, I don't say, okay, you got to buy 5 lessons up front. You know, I just don't believe in doing it that way. I do one for one kind of situations. You know, if we work with one lesson and then you're like, okay, I need some time. I don't know, maybe in the next 2 weeks, I might need another lesson. Okay, just let me know when you want it.
okay, so
Somebody's asking how they.
email or
I'm
through
sorry.
a website?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
What was that, Mike?
Contact you through email or through the
Yeah.
website?
Yeah, through email, john@macfortheblind.com.
Awesome, thanks.
Thank you.
Somebody's asking for the audio for this class, and I think you write in every email that you say if you want the audio to email you, and you'll send them a Dropbox
Yeah,
link.
I'll send you the Dropbox. I got to convert it first, and then I got to put it in Dropbox, and then just whoever wants it, just email me directly. I already have a couple of people who've done that sitting in my inbox, so just add to it, and I will get it to you later today.
And I think that's it. Unless somebody sends something right now, and I've heard a lot of people. I hear a lot of people leaving anyway, so they must figure it's over. So
Yeah, it's almost 2:25 anyway, so we're pretty much done. So unless somebody else pops in with a question. All right. I guess not. Well, I thank everybody who's still here for attending. I appreciate it. And thanks, Cliff, for all the help with the chats.
no problem. Now
And
just send that information over to my counselor, so they should be contacting you.
Okay. All right. And we will get together again on Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern for those who registered for the Safari lesson.
Have a good one.
All right, guys.
Thanks, John.
You're very welcome.